Good morning. Thank you all for coming out this morning. My name is Gloria Dove Owens. I am the campus manager here at the Riverside campus. I want to take this moment and thank you so much for coming out to our wonderful campus conversation. As you know, we have refreshments in the back, so feel free to help yourself. Again, let's have fun. Let's address our concerns, and I'm going to pass the mic over to Dr. Richard Rhodes and Provost Humphrey. Thank you all for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
How's everybody doing this morning?
Great.
All right, all right. First of all, I want to say thank you to Gloria Dove Owens. Doesn't she do a fantastic job out here as campus manager? So thank you, Gloria. We're going to spend just a little bit of time. We're going to talk about the 2022 bond process and the outcomes of that. And then we're going to talk about the Chancellor's priorities, and then we'll have time for questions and some answers. If I don't have the answer, I'm going to turn it over to our new Dr. Groves. He just defended his dissertation last week, finalized all of the edits this past weekend, so he is now officially Dr. Groves. So let me get started with this, and first of all, just say thank you for turning out. It's a good-sized crowd. And later we'll introduce some of our new people to you. Maybe I'll do it right now. So our new HR Vice Chancellor is Kelly Tarico. And she brought her team with her. All right, so let's get started. Well, how many of you have met Jason Marshall, our Vice Chancellor for IT? He said it's the first time he's been on this campus. So it better not be the last time, Jason. Okay. This is what we're going to cover this morning. So I'm going to go through the bond overview, the projects, and then get into, hand it over to Dr. Monique Humphrey, who's going to talk about the Chancellor's priorities, and then we'll open it up for questions. So, what we've been working on over the past several years is, because of the growth of Central Texas, is kind of dividing up our service area. And as you probably know, our service area is defined by the state of Texas. Within that service area, we have a taxing district. And so what we've tried to do, we've only built campuses within our taxing district, not outside of the taxing district. Our service area, you probably remember, is about the size of the state of Connecticut. So it's a large mass of land. But most of the population, at least today, is within our taxing district. But it is beginning to grow outside of our taxing district. That is one of the problems, I will tell you, that a lot of community colleges throughout the state of Texas are struggling with right now, in that there are many of our community colleges in the state that most of the population is outside of their taxing district. And that can really pose some major problems financially. We have been blessed because most of our population, most of that growth has been within the taxing district. It is beginning to change. And so that's something we've got to look to the future. But what we have done is we've taken a look at that service area and broken it up into three different segments: north, central, and south. And we've aligned our campuses in that configuration. And we look at programmatic expansion by making it accessible programs to each of those areas, north, central, and south. So as an example, nursing program, we have a great presence in the north at the Round Rock campus, a great presence in the central at Eastview. We have no presence for nursing in the south area of our service area. So those are the things that through the 2022 bond issue Those are the things that we're beginning to address, especially in career and technology education. So, as you know, we went to the voters, asked them to approve $770 million in GO bonds last November, and we had a 70% vote in favor of that, which is pretty much unheard of around the state of Texas for community colleges. Usually you're hoping that it is 50% plus one so that you can get it passed. Some people make a joke about it and say, if you get more than 50% plus one, you work too hard. But I will just tell you that the 70% is a reflection of the respect that our community has for ACC and for everything that you do. That, it continues to amaze me, the numbers of people that I talk to throughout the community that have either attended ACC, their kids attend ACC, but everybody knows about ACC. We are not a hidden product. I told, last week, I told the group when we were having the awards ceremony that some of us ran in a what's called the Texas Independence Relay Race, 200-mile, 12-person team relay race. Started in Gonzales, Texas, ended up in Houston. And so along that way, I went to register our team to get all of our stuff. And the young man that was registering noticed that my t-shirt said Riverbat Express. And he said, Riverbats, are you from Austin Community College? And I said, yes, I am. He said, I went to Austin Community College. I love Austin Community College. And then later, we were, happened to be at the Spetzel Brewery, Shinerbach. It was end of a long run. And so just happened to be in line to get something to eat. And the lady in front of us noticed also Riverbat Express and said, you from Austin Community College? Yes, we are. Who are you? I'm the chancellor. And so we got to talking. I think Jessica was there with me. And so we started asking her questions. One of the questions I asked you asked, who was your favorite professor at Austin Community College? And she said, Per Smith. And just last Thursday, we were honoring Per Smith as one of our distinguished faculty. And then, if that's not enough, you keep running across people like this. We were out standing, getting ready to do the baton exchange. And this lady walks up and says, aren't you Richard Rhodes, the chancellor at Austin Community College? And I said, yes, I am. Can I have my picture taken with you? So people just love ACC, and so do I, because you make a difference in everything that we do within this community. We are making a difference day by day, student by student. So that means they love us. They love ACC, everything that we're about. So what we've done is broken it out by those three segments. And so I'll start with the South region. And of the $770 million, about $390 million, more than half of it, is actually going to the South portion of our service area. We bought land as a result of the 2014 bond issue as a land bank for future development. We bought the land close to the airport, and we currently have about 85 acres, I think, out there. That is going to be a brand new development. I mean, it is just raw land right now. So that's where a bulk of it is going to go. What you'll see for Riverside out of the bond issue itself is $10 million. However, we did something different a year ago called tax maintenance notes. and there's additional money in that. So in total, we have about $40 million dedicated and targeted to the improvement and expansion of Riverside. So now the central region has one of the bigger projects is the remaining building at Highland, and that is what used to be the Macy's building. And so that will be either the renovation or tearing it down and starting from scratch, but that is the biggest project in that one. And then in the north, we've got Round Rock and Cypress are the big ones, big projects. Cypress needs quite a bit of help right now. We need a new building out there. Round Rock is kind of split into two segments. One of those, the trustees approved the architects last night, and that is for our CTE center expansion for welding, and I see Brandon back there. But that is for welding, auto trades, building construction, and advanced manufacturing so that we can get that underway. The second phase will be for health sciences expansion. So I said that, you know, in addition to the $770 million that got approved, we also went out and sold some tax maintenance notes. And those are being used for GO bond projects. You can have new buildings, new construction, or renovations. For tax maintenance notes, you cannot put any of that money into new buildings, but you can use it for renovation of existing facilities and buildings. And so the tax maintenance notes are what a lot of it is going into Riverside. So the next steps, when we talk about what is next, and the first actually kickoff project out of that bond election is for that Round Rock project. And so the trustees approved the architect last night. Next will be construction manager at risk and go through the process on that. And for each one of those projects, we'll follow that same template. You hire the architect, and then you go out, and once that's designed, then you hire the contractor, construction manager at risk. So that I am going to turn over to Dr. Humphrey to talk about the Chancellor's priorities, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Thank you, Dr. Rose. Good morning. How's everybody? My favorite people, okay. I'm glad to see you awake. I'm always excited when I get a chance to come out on the campuses. You know, sometimes we all get caught up in the busyness of our days, but I had the opportunity last week to be in Denver as part of the AACC conference. And for those of you that have never had a chance, it's really a great opportunity to renew, you know, our purpose for why we do this work. There were a lot of inspiring sessions at the AACC conference. Trevor Noah opened up the keynote the first night with the opening session. And on the last day, Cheryl Lee Ralph spoke to us about her experiences and her leadership experiences. She was very inspiring. She talked about her father being a community college professor and the importance of our work. The one thing I want to share with you was Tuesday was the Alumni Awards. And there was one particular award that just settled in my heart. There was a person that was recognized. When you look at him now, you see that he was the first, I believe he was the first digital architect officer for President Obama. And so he's recognized as being an outstanding alumni. Now, it would be easy to look at his accomplishments, but he flipped the script. When they described him, the first picture they showed of him was at like 17 or 18 with a do-rag on. And he said he wanted to start there because many people would have given up on him. He said he was an angry angry teenager. He had his parents there, and he first started off by thanking them. And he said that he just was so appreciative to his parents for not giving up on him. He said it wasn't that he had a bad childhood, he just was angry. When he finished high school, he decided he didn't think he had a future in a 4-year college. He went to the local community college. He mentioned the faculty member that would not accept his anger. And he talked about how that faculty member continued to believe in him when he didn't believe in himself. And because of that faculty member's belief, he started seeing something in himself that he originally didn't see. That faculty member saw his leadership, saw his genius, and saw his brilliance. I say that because he said, most people see me and see my accomplishments, but none of the 4-year degree, the graduate work, he said none of that would have been possible without his community college experience. So he talked about the importance of the work that we do every day. For how many of our students would never get the opportunity for leadership, for excellence, for a family-sustaining career without starting with us? So when I think about the Chancellor's priorities, ACC has been known as being a national leader for teaching and excellence. We know that. But the Chancellor's priorities allow us to go beyond the everyday work and focus on high-impact practices and innovation. We work together to ensure that we don't rest on our laurels, that we don't become complacent, and that we always remember that student that may not have a voice, may not have an advocate, and remember that we are their advocate. The work that we do every day together changes lives. We can never lose focus on that. And so I'll be talking about the Chancellor's priorities, but I never want us to lose sight of the fact that we're in the people-changing business. That's everybody in this room. No matter what your job title says, each one of us has a part in changing lives. And so I don't want us to ever forget the core of why we're here. So when we think about equity, that's a loaded word in today's society, but it's also core to who we are and what we do. When you look at the mission, vision, and values of the college, this word is baked into everything. It's in why we were created. We are an access institution, an open access institution, and we will continue to be. Part of our charge is to ensure that we're providing high quality education for everybody that walks through our doors. This doesn't mean that this is a one-size-fits-all approach to education. We talk about personalized learning a lot. In order to have true personalized learning, we have to deeply understand how and why people learn. This doesn't mean, I brag about us all the time, and I said, ACC is not your granddaddy's community college. We are the MIT of community colleges. I'm not joking when I say that. It's not the facilities, and our facilities are impressive. This $770 million bond is impressive, but it wouldn't mean anything without the people that we have at each location, without the talent and commitment of our people. It's how we do what we do. It's how we teach students. It's the fact that we're teaching them how to think. It's the fact that we are reinforcing to them that they are important, that they matter, and that they're valuable. So when we talk about personalized learning, it's us digging deeply to understand how do we continue to build on the amazing legacy that we have for teaching and learning? How do we go deeper? How do we challenge ourselves? In an era where you hear ChatGPT at least twice a day, ChatGPT, that's a whole subject. We could talk about generative AI, we could talk about natural language processing. But when we talk about personalized learning, we're really at the essence getting to what makes this person tick and how do I understand what you need to thrive in this situation. There's a lot that goes under this umbrella. So when we're talking about the Chancellor's priorities, we're trying to go deeper into finding out what we can do as an institution to create the optimal learning environment for each student. And then celebrating differences. I'm very proud of the fact that ACC was one of the first colleges to have a student-led neurodiversity group. The group is currently called Access Autism, but they are petitioning for a name change because they want to have a more inclusive name to celebrate all of the different strengths and backgrounds of the students in our organization. When I talk to my peers at other institutions, they say, do you have any training for this? And I said, yes, our students created it. We have free training available on YouTube created by our students to help people if you're not familiar with neurodiversity, if you're trying to understand terminology and how this works. Our students have already done some amazing work. And Steve, if you could raise your hand, Steve Christopher leads our student support team that supports our scholar parents, our neurodiversity teams, and his team has been, I don't want to preempt the press release that Brett will work on, but they have been working on the certification for us to be a neurodiverse workplace. That's significant. We'll be one of the first colleges to have this designation, and we'll continue to build on that in our awareness. So again, that we can create an environment where everyone can thrive. Enrollment. One of the things that's important to us as we think about our fiduciary responsibility, our moral responsibility, is to ensure that everyone who desires to have a high quality education has the opportunity to do that. So from our perspective, we want to make sure that we're eliminating all the barriers that we create. Sometimes we have well-meaning motives and we want to do things to help students, but what we do is create another barrier for the student. So this means we are intentionally looking at ourselves. We're applying that lens of continuous process improvement to ensure that we are the best that we can be. And so again, even though we are a great institution, as Dr. Rhodes would say, the best in the galaxy, we can't stay there unless we remain a learning institution. And that means we have to be open to being honest with ourselves, looking at our processes, looking at how we do things, and being open to making tweaks. Sometimes it's a small tweak, sometimes it's a big one. But part of that work for us with the Chancellor's priority is our strategic enrollment management planning. So we're working with a group called Swim Digital, and we've had several strike teams that have been a part of this work, and it has been amazing to look at the progress that has happened. The direct results is we've had increases in enrollment starting in the spring as a result of this work, trying to remove those barriers. And then making sure that we have positive experiences for every student. Learning and retention. This is who we are, right? At the core of what we do. So we are looking at ways to always strengthen and deepen our understanding of how and why people learn, applying those things, looking at ourselves as a learning institution and seeing how we can improve. We look at the high impact practices that are identified by research and best practices, and we're applying those things, looking at how we apply those things in our environment. It's not, again, nothing is about a cookie cutter approach. What worked at Alamo may or may not work here. What worked in Houston Community College may or may not work here. What works here may or may not work at another institution, but it's looking at the high impact practices, understanding our students, understanding our campuses, understanding our cultures, and looking at how we can apply those things. One example of this is our strategic scheduling work. So Dr. Galen Scott is working with the different strike teams there to ensure that we're giving the people who are doing the work of scheduling the proper tools. We're using Ad Astra's Align and Predict to assist our faculty members, deans, department chairs in the scheduling process. We're trying to build a schedule that is student-driven, that's demand-driven. And this is not easy work. If you've ever been a part of the schedule build process, again, we're not a small, private community college with 1,000 students. We serve 70,000 students a year. The scale of what we do is huge. And if you've never worked with anything of this scale, it's hard to understand. But our department chairs, our faculty members, they are dedicated to ensure that we have the best schedule possible. So we're applying that process of continuous process improvement to ensure that we have the absolute best schedule that we can. Understanding that our students are changing. As I shared last night at the board meeting, we have 78% of our students are part-time, 28% of our students are scholar parents, and I believe it was 60, off the top of my head, it was over 60% have paid work responsibilities. So our students are juggling a lot just to sit in our classrooms. How can we support them and make sure that they have an environment, again, that optimal learning environment? So part of that includes HighFlex courses. The HighFlex work started in the GIS department. And so Stephanie Long was one of the first faculty members, I guess early adopters, and they spoke at the recent League for Innovations conference on their work in this space. They're national leaders, innovators. So we've had several, we had a summer cohort and then a summer cohort and a fall cohort of faculty members that have gone through professional development to look at how they can implement their classes in a HighFlex classroom. This also includes the work of our finance team working with us so that we can retrofit these classrooms. When you saw the modernization work in the bonds, there's a lot of work around ensuring that we're increasing the number of HighFlex classrooms that we have on each campus. And then also we have our QEP work. So as part of our accreditation work, our college has decided collectively that our QEP would be focused on digital fluency and innovation. We affectionately refer to that as TechWity because we understand that as all of our students need digital skills to be productive and competitive in today's environment and tomorrow's environment, the lack of digital skills has a disproportionate effect on Black and brown students. We know that for Hispanic adults, over 56% self-identified that they didn't feel that they had the proper digital skills to be competitive. And for African American adults, over 52% said that they didn't feel that they had the proper digital skills to compete. This limits their ability to have a family-sustaining wage, especially now. You're hearing all the talk about generative AI. I won't go into all of that, but the fact that we were so proactive in identifying our QEP speaks volumes about who we are as an institution and our focus. Even the whole TechWity theme really speaks to our need to meet each student where they are and ensure that they are prepared for the world that they will inherit. This chancellor's priority, wellness, I always say that this is not just about yoga classes. This is about mental health. This is about self-care. This is about how we treat each other. This is about how we show up for each other. So when you think about our 3 C's, we're all challenged not to treat the 3 C's as a poster. This has to be embedded into our values, embedded into how we show up for each other every day. So one of the things that my office did, we created the 3C Award so we could recognize the people who are exemplars across the college. And if you haven't had a chance to attend the 3C Awards, I encourage you to do so. We haven't had a single month where you were not, I'm trying really hard not to cry when we have these, but it's getting harder and harder. Because we have people who are amazing, amazing in how they approach this work. And so it's going beyond just saying these things are important to us. This is truly how we show up for each other, how we make sure that the way that we treat each other is the way that we want to be treated and the way that we want to be remembered as an institution. You know, whether you recognize it or not, we spend more waking hours with each other than you do with your spouses and your children. So it really helps if you like each other. That helps. But if you don't, at least let's treat each other civilly, okay? So this is just a way that we continue to make this a priority, that yes, we will do this work. Yes, we will treat our students with respect, but it's also saying that we will show up for each other and we will treat each other in a way that makes this work sustainable. You cannot do this work. This is service work. Everybody in this room is being called to be a servant leader. And to do this work, you have to take care of yourself, And also we have to look out for each other. You can't do this work as a cowboy. So we need each other to continue to be able to do this work. And we want to continue to emphasize this part, because this is the heart of who we are as a college. If we serve our students and don't have a heart for them, they'll feel it. But if we try to do this work and try to care for the students and don't take the time to replenish your cup, you will burn out. Yes, we cannot afford that. We don't need a single person in here to run out the door screaming because they're tired or overwhelmed. We've got to find ways to replenish ourselves and replenish each other. Modernization. I've talked about generative AI, I've talked about some of those other things, but why this work is so important is because students have different expectations now than they did. My best friend and I were talking this morning. She said, you know, pre-COVID, you remember that world? Yeah, pre-COVID. The expectations students had pre-COVID are very different than their expectations now. What they would have tolerated in an online class is very different from what they tolerate now. How many of you have seen a commercial or an ad pop up on your phone or on your computer for Grand Canyon University, Arizona State, SNHU? It's no longer that we're the only shop in town or that we're the only ones doing this work. They can live here and attend all of those colleges that I just mentioned. And if the experience is easier for them, I'm just going to leave that there. You're smart and you can make deductions. We talk about jobs to be done. That's a framework. We want to make sure that we're meeting students where they are. That requires our infrastructure to be modernized. So we are being very intentional. We're embarking on the work for our SIS system, Student Information System, the implementation with Workday. I saw Mike Midgley. Where are you? All right. Mike, if you can raise your hand. He is our fearless leader leading our Workday SIS implementation. So he's working with people across the college to ensure that we have a successful implementation of our Workday SIS system. And then also, how do we have collaborative workflows? So looking at all the systems that we have, how do we move from information and data to insights? This is not a 1-month project. This will be ongoing. But we have to continue to modernize to be able to take advantage of the technology that exists and also be proactive because the world is shifting. If you have used I'm just curious, show of hands, who has actually used ChatGPT? Okay. If you haven't, I encourage you to play with it. I spent over 20 years in the IT industry, 14 as a software developer, and the other years in IT leadership. Never in my professional life have I seen anything this game-changing. So if you haven't had a chance to experiment, I encourage you to. This is not about plagiarism or catching students cheating. This is about understanding the way that Microsoft described their implementation and integration of ChatGPT into their suite is called Copilot that they're integrating into Office. They said it's giving everybody their own white-collar worker as an assistant, and that's how they are promoting this. Again, I encourage you to play with it. Don't have enough time to cover it, but it is a force multiplier. That's the best way I can describe generative AI. Whether you like it or not, whether you have concerns about the ethics, think it needs to slow down, speed up, we can't stop the fact that it's here. And so, I said that ACC is the MIT of community colleges. We will continue to be on the forefront. We will continue to ensure that we are providing the training that students need so that their education and training are preparing them and positioning them to be leaders in today's environment. I mentioned the SIS system. You can read. So these are some of the benefits of us adopting our new SIS system. And again, you'll hear more about this work. We'll have more open forums to ensure that we are taking a collaborative approach to our work. Another Chancellor's priority is our work around sustainability and effectiveness. So Dr. Rhodes went into great detail about our GeoBond. We have Dr. Molly Beth Malcolm, if she can raise her hand. She leads our legislative work. We're lucky to have such a well-respected, connected person leading this work. And she ensures that we are at the forefront with the bills, with our congressional support, with our representatives. We recently received funding for cybersecurity as a result of this important work. So our legislative focus does not stop. It is critical in today's environment that we continue to remain positioned as a leader in higher ed. And then you all have already heard the work. We've done our collective celebrations about our 10-year site reaccreditation. So last year in the fall, Dr. Mary Harris, I don't think she's here, but she led, and Misty Rasmussen led our collective work around reaccreditation, and we are so proud to say that we came out of that 10-year work with 0 recommendations. That is huge, and we need to have a collective round of applause for that work. So all of these 3 things are critical to ensure that our institution remains viable, robust, and sustainable for the long term. And with that, I'll turn it back to Dr. Rhodes.
Thank you. I'm going to ask you to stay up here with me, and we are opening it up for questions. So any questions you've got on your mind? Yes, sir. Building D? Yes. Yeah, we were just talking about, Neil and I were talking about that this morning. It is, what we're going to do is take a look at having an assessment of the structural underpinnings of that building as to whether or not it can be reused. It's about 15,000 square feet. I think that's right. So if it can be saved and repurposed, then that is a perfect project that comes underneath the tax maintenance notes that we have. So we're going to go through an assessment of that building to make sure it's structurally sound. Yes. Her hand was up first, and now I'll go to you, David.
I am faculty here at Riverside and have been for about 7 years, and there has been a pretty dramatic change in the campus since that time. It's now become, it's almost a ghost town. A lot of our faculty have left for other campuses. We used to fight for office space, now it's just vacancy after vacancy. So I am wondering what specific changes we can expect to see at Riverside that will provide our students with an equitable learning environment, equitable services, support that they get at Highland or even South Austin. Even though Riverside is supposed to be the southern hub, we have, it's stark, the difference between the services that are not available here that are available at South Austin or Hayes. So I'd really like to see this campus, you know, I stay here because I'm committed to these students. Most of them are Hispanic from Del Valle, so they don't have access to public transportation to get them to the Highland campus. So I'd like to hear, I was really pleased to see the amount of funding that's going to be coming to Riverside, but I'd like to hear some specifics about what we can do to make this an equitable learning space for our students.
Yeah. I'll start, and then if you want to add to that. You know, the first thing I would say is all of our campuses for this past year have almost seemed like ghost towns, especially fall. Spring is starting to come back, but as you know, most of our classes were still, during the fall semester, still online classes. And so as we come back, I think you're going to see more and more of students coming back in person on campuses. So the second part of your question is yes, we need to make sure that we have the right types of environment for the students, such as whether it's accelerators, whether it's the student services, the front face to welcome students in. Those types of things have to happen. And so those are the types of things that are incorporated within the tax maintenance note money that we talked about. Bear with us, join with us in creating the right environment and giving us the feedback necessary as to what is that right environment as we move forward at the Riverside campus. So I appreciate your comments. I thank you for staying here for our students and join with us in making it the best campus we can make.
And I would like to add to that by saying that we can come up with ideas as administrators, and we can look at all of the high impact practices, but each campus has its own culture. So just as I had a listening session last week with the Northridge campus, we'll have to have the same thing here to have not just faculty members, but student affairs members, everybody that touches a student, our facilities team, work together to say what is needed here. How can we make sure that this place is thriving, vibrant? Sometimes it's a coat of paint, sometimes it's more office hours for student affairs, but collectively we can identify what are the specific things that are needed for each campus. We need your ideas on what we can do from a marketing perspective and just an engagement perspective to ensure that the students feel that this is the right place. I'm hearing at the various locations, some of our locations have food services. If we want it to be sticky, we've got to provide all of those things to ensure that each student, again, I'm going to say it again, it doesn't matter which door a student comes into at ACC, across the 11 campuses, soon to be 13, every single student is valuable. And every one of our faculty members and staff and administrators are valuable. It doesn't matter what campus you work on. We want to ensure that we have the best environment for everybody, our students, our faculty, and our staff. So we're working to get there, but we definitely will need your help to get there.
So let's see, we've got David, and then I'll come back.
That's okay. I have a lot of teachers. Okay, so first of all, welcome to Riverside. I would like to tweak you, since I had mentioned this to you before, that I hope that at some point we can fix the bathroom on the first floor of this building. And if you have an update on that, I'm sure everybody here would appreciate that. But more seriously, I heard a lot of concerns about the shift at Northridge to an 8-week hybrid campus, and that faculty were not engaged, employees in general and specifically the faculty were not engaged in that process. And it raises real questions about the commitment to shared governance. And so I'd like to get your thoughts on why that didn't really seem to happen at Northridge and took everyone by surprise there, and what can be done as you're considering the future of Riverside, and things that might be done here. I mean, Trustee Bryant was suggesting last night doing the 8-week hybrid model here. I'm not sure it's a good idea, but I wanted to throw that out at you. And one other thing related to bringing out new course formats like the 8-week hybrid and high flex classrooms. Is there going to be an effort to pay adjuncts to redo their courses and restructure their course formats? Because we don't get paid for our prep time. Hopefully that will change, but we don't. So will adjuncts get compensated for restructuring courses as you introduce all these new course formats?
Would you like me to start?
Sure.
Sure. So thank you for your question and comment, Mr. Albert. I'd like to say I think sometimes the narrative matters and how we share some of these things. With the 8-week courses at Northridge, let's talk about that first. I understand, and I think it's fair to say, based on the listening sessions, that when we had the listening sessions at Northridge, we had very different opinions of the faculty that were present. You had some that had concerns about the pedagogy, some that had concerns about the modalities, some that were staunch advocates. I think it's also important from a narrative perspective that we share a full narrative. Some people may have been caught by surprise, but it was not something that was sprung on the Northridge campus at large, and let me explain why I mean that. There was a strike team. I mentioned the chancellor's priorities. There was an 8-week team comprised of members from the Northridge campus, faculty members. Looking back in retrospect, the challenge was the members that worked on the strike team did not communicate that back to their peers. I will own that as an administrator, that we should have done better to make sure that everybody was aware from the beginning. That's a lesson that we've learned. I said we're a learning institution. Have we gotten everything right? No. But what we have learned from that is to make sure that as we're doing work, if it is a task force, we have to make sure that that work is communicated with the greater audience. And also give more people opportunities to serve. These are things that we're learning. That's why I said it's important as we're looking at the identity for this campus that we have a large number of voices that get to have input, that get to have a say. So the concerns that people didn't feel included, that's a problem. That's a problem. Was it intentional? No. Was there an attempt to leave people out? No. But what we have learned from that is we have to have more voices involved earlier and have better communication about the work that we're doing so it's not a small subset working in isolation. And no matter what the initiative is, if it's a high impact practice, it's really critical on work like this that we get different standpoints. It's important to have the staunch advocates and the dissenters so we can discuss the possibilities, the challenges. Nobody wants to be Pollyanna implementing something that's not really feasible. We can't afford to implement pet projects. I don't care if it's mine or Dr. Rhodes. We have to use a data-informed approach to look at it and say, what's the value? What value does this bring to our students? What challenges does it present for our faculty, our student affairs? And as we look at all of that, then we come up with the solution that works for us. Like I said, just because something worked at Odessa or HCC does not mean it's going to work here. But what I shared at Northridge was the hypothesis, and this is a high impact practice, that this, one of the most insightful things that I learned from our peers at the colleges that are implementing 8 weeks is that it gives, I mentioned all the stats about our students, today's students. Many of them are working, many are scholar parents, many are struggling financially. We also know that most of our students are $400 away from crisis. A $400 or less crisis will stop many of our students. They'll have to withdraw, whether it's a problem with their car. What we know is that shorter term courses allow life not to have the same impact. If they have a problem with their car in week 14 and they're taking 4 classes, they have to withdraw from all 4 classes. That means they've made no progress this semester. If they were taking 2 8-week courses in the first part of the term and 2 in the middle, and that crisis happened in week 14, they at least got the credit for those first 2 courses. When life happens, it's not as catastrophic for them. What we've got to say is we treat every high impact practice as if it's a hypothesis. So we have to treat it as a science experiment. If we're looking at it and it has early promise, that's what every high impact practice is. It has promise, but it's not proven in our environment. So we treat it as a hypothesis. Our responsibility when we have a hypothesis is to make sure that we create the optimal learning environment possible for us. That way, when we track and measure the impact of this initiative, we can say, we did it to the best of our ability, we implemented it with fidelity, and it didn't work for our students, or it did, or it only had a 2% increase. But when we measure it, we want to make sure that we did our best. So that's why it's so important that we have a wide variety of voices to go into the planning, and we will have all of those voices on our full implementation. So to address your initial concern, we've had a group that's been working on 8 weeks at Northridge over a year, or about a year. The challenge was it wasn't communicated until January or February. And so when some people heard it in January or February, it was a shock. And like I said, as the administrator that's over academic instruction, I take responsibility for that. But what we've learned from that is we'll do better. And as I appreciate your comment earlier about what do we do here. We've seen declining enrollment at some of our campuses, but it's not a silver bullet for anything. We have to be very intentional. We're implementing design thinking, which is taking a human-centered approach to looking at the faculty's perspective, looking at the students' perspective, to ensure that the solutions that we deliver meet the needs and unmet needs of the people that we're serving. If we don't do that, the likelihood of us having successful implementations are low. So that's why we're working, and I appreciate the comments and I appreciate the input to ensure that we're creating the best possible future.
Yep. And if you didn't see it, so Dr. Humphrey and Dr. Scott did a great job last night of presenting and talking about the 8-week classes as a part of the Chancellor's priorities. And part of that, too, was Dr. Jenna here introduced some of the data that really talked about what do students want. And students overwhelmingly are really interested in having 8-week opportunities. Now, this is not new to ACC. We've been doing 8-week classes for a long time. But we haven't been systematic with, can we offer them at a campus to where they can be assured that they can go all the way through a program of study with 8-week sequenced classes. And that's the experiment that Dr. Humphrey is talking about on the campus at Northridge. So that's, thank you for doing that because it's for our students' best interest. So question back here.
Setting up new class formats?
They are when they go through.
Through the training.
Or it becomes it for training?
Yeah, because really, when you talk about high flex, that's not a new, and I'm probably out of my element. It is not a redesign of the curriculum, but it's a way to, how do you bring a student who life gets in the way and they have to join via online as opposed to being in the class, which are more like one-offs. That it's not a redesign of the curriculum, but it's how do you use the technology effectively and efficiently. And that's really where Dr. Scott is saying we are.
We pay for participation in the institute, and then we pay for the launch.
I haven't heard that communicated.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Okay.
Does
Yes,
that
sir,
address
in the
all of your
back.
concerns?
Except for the bathroom.
Oh, okay.
Hi, I'm Dr. Bucko. I just wanted to, there's a lot of things I would like to say, but I don't want to take too much time. I think the one thing that we need to really think about is when we construct new construction of these buildings, I would highly recommend, because I really think that, I hate to say it, I'm going to be the droopy here, Round Rock was not really constructed correctly at all, and neither was Highland. The students totally get lost at Highland. They don't know where they park. And it's all this wasted space. There should be more classroom space. The library is too small. It's just not well done at all. And Round Rock, you're just walking in and you're walking into a maze. And it just doesn't have the right atmosphere at all. And it's a construction mistake. And all you have to do is just ask the students. And what you have to do when you ask the students, you can't ask them in this environment. You have to decode yourself, dress down in normal clothing, and then talk to somebody like in a parking lot and get their intake, because they're not going to tell you the truth. They find out who you are, because I've been in millions of meetings at different schools, and they never tell the truth to the people other than somebody like crazy like me. And so that's what I would recommend to do when you really want a real answer, And there's not going to be one student that's going to tell you that they're going to want an 8-week class in calculus. I mean, because I was a math major. I've talked to like 5 or 6 students. They're not going to want an 8-week class in calculus because it's not designed for 8 weeks. That's all there is to it. I mean, maybe there's maybe 1% of the population that's able to handle something like that because the information is too indensed.
Thank you for sharing your concerns.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Helen Daly, and my question is related to transportation and the destination campuses. I recently overheard that it's being considered to make Hayes the destination campus for this area instead of Riverside. And my concern about that is there's no public transportation that gets students from the South Austin area down to Hayes. So I'm just curious, how is that going to benefit our students if this campus is closed and the closest thing they have for destination is either going to Highland or going all the way down to Hayes?
First, I guess I would have to say that we're looking at all of the campuses and what happens on them, and so it's not that one campus is going to be the destination, but we look at all of the services that are offered on every campus to make sure that we have the opportunities students need effectively. One of the things we've said, though, is that when we talk about programs, we can't have, as an example, nursing on every single campus. And so where are those types of high-cost programs, high-dollar programs, going to be offered? And so we're talking more about some of the programmatic offerings being at those locations, as opposed to the types of wraparound support services for students. That those are critical to be on all of the campuses. So I don't want anybody to think when we say a destination campus that they're losing support for students. It's just that the programmatic offerings may be different.
Before we go to another question, can we give an update on the status of the restroom repair here?
Yeah. Oh, Sherry Ann is back there.
Okay.
Okay. We started the restroom renovations here during the pandemic, and we thought it was going to be a 6 or 8 week project, and it's taken over a year. What we had to do was bring in our own plumbers, and we've hired our own plumbers to start that work. They've ordered all the parts. Probably in the next, I would say, 4 weeks, those bathrooms will be completed. We're sorry it took so long, but we thought it was going to take much quicker than it did.
Thank you for the update.
Yes, ma'am, in the back, and then we'll come up.
This is actually not even going to cost anything, but I've been here for 16 years at Riverside, and I know from the beginning ACC has always had testing centers, which are a gift from God. Great for makeups, kids who are absent, and up until last fall, we were also using them for retest for kids, students that failed at whatever level, the first exam or an exam, and then had an option to retest with a different question set and possibly bring at least the grade up to a survival rate. That disappeared in September. I have yet to understand why or get a reason why that happened. I know that my own students over 16 years, this has saved a lot of students. It really has saved their careers. It has saved their grades. I have the data on it, and I don't know why. I walk past testing centers on several campuses 4 days a week, twice a day. There's lots of room, there's lots of staff. The goal, as I understand, is to have as many students get credit for courses as possible. The high school dual credit students in particular come in completely dazed and confused. I have students who have asked me, what part of England is France in? So a retest gives them an option, and it has helped a number of my students pass a course. So I would like to know why that is no longer an option.
Could we get Dr. Galen Scott to give an
Yeah.
update on our testing centers?
While she's doing it,
Okay.
Mike wanted to know also what part of England is France.
I'm going to invite my colleague, Dr. Reinhardt, to join me in this answer. The testing centers are under her authority, and I was unaware that we didn't allow retesting. We just put limits on it. Is that right?
Yes, so there was a test work group, I don't know how many we've had, but anyway, 4, I think. And so to address those kinds of issues, but retests are allowed. So if you want to connect with me afterwards, we can kind of talk about it because makeups are allowed in the testing center. So there might be just be some miscommunication, but I will be glad to meet with you afterwards so we can chat about it.
Thank you.
Yes, right here.
The mic is coming.
Hello. I don't have so much a question as a comment, perhaps a question. We'll do both. Will we ever see a return of food services to this campus?
Oh, we've addressed that one. It's going to be Sherry on again.
Oh,
We've started the renovations of the Riverside Cafe, and it should be ready, hopefully, I'm not going to give a date because we're having a hard time getting things in once we get dates, but renovation has already started for the Riverside Cafe.
Cool, because, the thing I want to kind of make a point about is I would love to see some space on this campus and on perhaps SAC and some others where students can just hang out. The kind of central hangout spot here is upstairs outside. And even in the rain the other day, there were still students just hanging out there in the rain because there's not really another spot. So I think that doesn't have to be a multi-million-dollar fix. I think we can do some things around here because, our campus is different than, say, Highland or others. There's nothing else around us except a golf course. So we're kind of the show. And if there's not somewhere to hang out, I think that's what's leading to the feeling of a ghost town. Because, I get hungry and I have to go off campus to go eat food. And I think we could build a better community and more camaraderie amongst our students, even if we just had places for them to kind of sit and hang out. I know we were able to get some spots in the main building. We got some new seated cushion areas. They're great. And I see students sitting there. I mean, I think it would be a great way to sort of re-inspire our campus just with a small fix, just to give us a place to hang out and talk to each other.
So Sherry on started talking about what we're doing. If you want to get a sneak preview of it won't be exactly the same, but we've already done this at Riverside, and they now have an in-house coffee with a Rio Grande, and we have hired a full-time chef that's working and bringing food and things in the morning and coffee. So there's going to be that here and at Eastview. They're both going on right now. And then I want to say one more thing because I'm going to have to leave before 11:30. At 11:30, when you get out of this, we hope that you will come outside for the grand reopening of El Centro. And you'll notice we'll end up going upstairs to that balcony. I assume that may be where you're talking about. And the new El Centro is right off of that. So we hope students will take more and more advantage of that. And I will give Sherry on credit for the furniture you're talking about. That's what we're doing. We're trying to bring more and more things over here.
And we've got Dr. Buchanan wanted to add something too.
We absolutely hear you about the student experience that we want our students, faculty, and staff to be able to have on the campuses. Dr. Humphrey mentioned those listening sessions that will be so important and vital. We want to hear that feedback. In Student Affairs, we're doing some listening sessions so we can know. We've had some good conversation probably in the summer and the fall to talk about some of those spaces and things that we want to see in the experience we want to have for students, and that's a consistent experience. So whether they're at Riverside, whether they're at Highland, they should feel like this is the place where I want to be loved, served, supported. So we're going to be scheduling those if some of them haven't already been scheduled so we can plan together for what that would look like. And so thank you for the comment. I appreciate that.
Thank you. One thing I just want to say, I am so thankful for everyone that has invested the time to come out today. All of the comments, questions, concerns are deeply appreciated by me and Dr. Rhodes. You know, I was taught a long time ago that feedback is a gift, and so you wouldn't share this if you weren't committed and passionate about the work that you do in serving our students and making sure that this is the best environment. So I thank you for sharing your thoughts, for being willing to sit here and have a dialogue. So that's our desire, to have more dialogue instead of talking at anyone, because it's vital for us to get this feedback. So thank you.
Okay. One last question?
I think our last question.
Okay.
Hi again. I have, maybe it's a comment, but as we're waiting for, these bonds to go through and these improvements to happen, what can we do now? I have major concerns regarding ADA compliance on this campus, including the only working bathroom in this facility, that back stall, including the suites, which our student affairs team, including student service accessibility services. They're not ADA compliant. And I'd be happy to share those measurements with anybody who wants them.
Yeah. And I will just tell you that that was the purpose of the tax maintenance notes that we sold, so that we could put it into the renovation and the necessary repairs on the campuses. So, yeah. Yeah, yeah. So we'll just need to make sure we communicate when these things are going to happen. And we'll try to do a better job of that. Okay, I just want to join Dr. Humphrey and say thank you for turning out. Thank you for your feedback. That's what makes us better. So, appreciate it.